So please join me in extending a warm welcome to Karen Stintz.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure for me to be here today and join such a group of powerful women and to know that the city is in safe hands because you are at the helm of so many wonderful corporations, businesses, and Pamela, a special thank you. Where are you, Pamela? Where are you? There you are. A special thank you to you for bringing all these incredible women together. It's truly an honor for me to be here, and I thank you very much for making time out of your day to come. I had to laugh, actually, because when I walked in, it was Mother's Day last Sunday. And as is what happens in the school, they send the kids and they get them doing arts and crafts for their moms so that the kids come home with something because most of the schools have female teachers and they know that dads don't always get to the store on time to buy mom a gift. Right? So sure enough, my daughter came home and she had designed for me this ceramic present. And I said, "Oh, sweetheart, what a beautiful black and white bowl." She said, "Mom, don't you know what it is?" I said, "It's not a black and white bowl." She said, "No, it's a panda." So when I saw the panda at my table, I knew today was going to be a good day. So as I say, I want to thank you very much for welcoming me here today. And just before I arrived here, actually, I was at another networking event for King's College, which was where I went to school. I actually started at Western. How many Western grads are here? Yeah, and I say started at Western because I was fortunate enough to have my first year at Saugeen. And if any of you had a first year at Saugeen, you would appreciate why my second year was at King's College. So I graduated from King's, and then I went on to Boston University to study journalism. And I see Daniel Dale in the audience. And I was actually quite lucky when I was at Boston because I had the privilege to learn that I was going to be a terrible journalist. And so, some people spend years in their career before they realize it's time to make a shift. I actually learned I needed to make a shift pretty quickly. And I'm actually in the process of reading Lean In. Has anyone read that book? Right? And it's about undervaluing your accomplishments and not taking enough, not recognizing your skills enough and always feeling as if you're about to be caught. And I was actually reflecting upon that and thinking, I wonder if that's what held me back for pursuing a career in journalism. No, I think I just would have been a bad journalist. So I feel pretty confident about that decision to pursue a different career. So then I went to Queen's and did an MPA at Queen's. And I did that because I've always believed the government has a role to play in building and supporting and improving people's lives. And so out of that, I went and had a career, and I then bought my house, I got married, and as was mentioned, I bought a house in North Toronto. And it was the first time in my life I actually started paying attention to municipal issues. I had been involved in campaigns sort of at the very low level federally, and I was interested in a lot of things that were going on federally, but I had never involved myself in municipal politics. And it was 2003, and as I say, I bought my house, and at the time I thought my house was grossly overpriced given what it was. But then I was listening to some of the dialogues that were going on at City Hall. And I kept hearing about all these crazy stories about paper bags full of cash and something about photocopiers, and then the mayor wasn't running again, and so it was a real opportunity for the city, I thought. And I thought, this is the campaign I'm going to get involved in. So back in 2003, I actually started helping John Tory. And out of that, I realized that there was an opportunity to run in my community. And the local neighbors were a little agitated, and they didn't feel as if their representative was actually representing their interests at City Hall. So I said to my husband, I think one day I'd like to run for office. And he said to me, you know what, there is no one day. There is today. And if you want to do something, you should do it. Now, my husband is also an amazing manager of expectations. He said, you're not going to win, but you'll never regret trying. So I said, okay, you know what, let's do it. And I also had the absolute benefit and privilege of working for, at the time, an incredibly strong woman who had pursued her own political dreams and was now my boss. And when I went to her and I said, I'd like to do this, she gave me every flexibility and every latitude in order to allow me to pursue this dream. And so off we went, and I knocked on doors, and I worked really hard, and in the back of my mind, I thought, well, you know what, as I'm talking to people, I'm like, you know what, maybe this is not such a crazy dream. But, you know, I didn't have my campaign, I have to, impress upon you how tight my campaign was. My husband was my campaign manager, fundraising chair, and an all-around go-to guy. My 72-year-old father, he was my sign crew. And my mother-in-law was my volunteer coordinator. So it was quite a dedicated effort. And you can't imagine my surprise in 2003 when I won. Because it was against all odds. No one predicted that I was going to win. And in fact, one of the Toronto Sun photographers said to me later, he said, you know, there's only two people I've seen be as surprised as they were when they won. One was Bob Ray. The other one was you. So it really was a remarkable moment. And now I've been at council for 11 years. And they've been a remarkable 11 years. They really have. And I served 7 of those years with David Miller. And, you know, and there was a lot of things that Miller did, but there was also a lot of things that we did that lost the trust of the public. And I don't know if many of you remember the garbage strike, and it was alluded to. And, you know, the garbage strike was the time where I think the city said to the administration and to the city and to City Hall, you know what, we understand the need to tighten our belts. We understand the need to pull together and stand behind the city administration while we fight for a more balanced contract. And we had the entire city saying, fight the fight. And so I understand why Rob Ford got elected. Because when the city was supposed to fight the fight, and when we had everyone standing behind us, the city caved, from my perspective. We were holding out for something that we didn't achieve, and in the process, we asked people to come with us on this journey, and they lugged their garbage to the parks, they put up with the weeds, they put up with the disruption in service because they said, we need to do this together. And in fact, we didn't deliver to you. And so Rob Ford got elected, and Rob Ford got elected for lots of reasons, and one of them was the gravy train, which we know doesn't exist. One was the fact he was going to shake up City Hall, which he certainly did. And the other was the whole notion that, you know what, we just don't need City Hall to be doing all the things that they're doing. And City Hall actually isn't help improving my life. City Hall just continues to pass bylaws and legislations that makes it more difficult to live here. So there was lots of reasons that Rob Ford got elected. And, you know, and I would say probably for the first 2 years, despite some of his missteps, he was probably, by and large, doing the job that people expected him to do. Because I hear that a lot. I hear, you know what, well, you know, we voted for him to outsource the garbage, he outsourced the garbage. We voted for him to get the union contracts under control, he got the union contracts under control. And so, you know, I hear that. And you know, what I like to remind people as well, though, is that he's not the only one with the track record. Because, in fact, I was at City Hall at the same time, and I voted to outsource the garbage, and I voted to get the union contracts under control. And I not only did it at City Hall, but I did it at the TTC. So I take some issue with the fact that Rob speaks as if he's the only one with a record. Because I have that record too. The one thing I don't have is a belief system that is misogynistic, bigoted, homophobic, rude. I don't break the law on a regular basis. Once I was caught, it's true. Once I was caught going through a stop sign on my bike. It is true. And that's a whole other story. But, you know, I look at this mayor and I think, you know what? It's not good enough that you have a track record of achievement on things that you actually didn't do on your own. You're not the role model for my children. You don't represent me. I don't think you've earned the right to continue to be our mayor. And so people say, well, how can we, like, why can't we get rid of him? And only he can choose to step down, which he's chosen not to do, or we vote to make a change. And I'm running for mayor because I want to be part of that change. And I want to work with you on building that change. Because when I see our city and I see the opportunity and the potential for our city, it is enormous. And so why am I running for mayor? I'm running for mayor because I think that we do need an accountable government that is responsible and respectful to the people. That there are taxpayers that need to know that their dollars are being spent wisely. That I do believe that we have a problem with congestion. It is hard to get around. Every day it's difficult to get around because the network is not coordinated, because there's construction on north-south streets at the same time or east-west streets at the same time. And how often have you been caught behind a delivery vehicle that's parked their car illegally at 5 o'clock in a main arterial clogging up a street? And I say, well, why is their time more valuable than your time? It's not. And so we need to fix that. And that's why I have a plan in place to put together a transportation agency like they did in London, so that we can get the network moving again. Because the network has to work for everyone. It has to work for cars, it has to work for buses, it has to work for streetcars, it has to work for cyclists, and it has to work for pedestrians. And right now, on a daily basis, you will have evidence that it's just not working. And we need to do better. We also need to invest in transit. And some of you may have heard about the transit debates we've had. They have been very noisy. Unfortunately, they were positioned as LRT versus subway. And in fact, it's not LRT versus subway because we need both. And in fact, we're building both right now. We're building an LRT along Eglinton, and we're building a subway up to York Region. And we have plans to build more LRTs and plans to build more subways. But the one thing we cannot do, whether you agree or disagree with the plan, I will argue very strongly, the one thing we cannot do is revisit a transit plan again. We have to break the cycle of changing our transit plans with every election. People ask me, why doesn't transit get built? I tell them transit doesn't get built because we keep changing the plans. So whether we agree or disagree with all aspects of the plan, I encourage every single person who is running for mayor and voting for mayor to hold the mayor to account, to build the plans that are funded and approved. And I think about, some of you may know, our subway is 60 years old this year. From Union to Eglinton, it's 60 years old. And before that subway got built, there was a referendum. And the city went to the people and they said, do you want to build a subway? Do you want to spend this money? And so that vote was taken about 65 years ago. The youngest voter at the time would have been 18. So I tell my children, when you see someone in their 80s, go say thank you. Say thank you. Because they voted yes so that you could have the city that you have today. Because I can't imagine this city without that subway. And I think that that's the kind of decision that we need to think about, or the kind of things that we need to think about in this vote coming up. Because we're not voting for the next 4 years or the next 8. The decisions that we make in this election, we should be making for the next 20. And it is about transportation, it is about transit, it is about how we build a city that we're proud of. It is about making sure that we have the opportunities here for our kids to come home to. And people ask me, when I'm running for mayor, how do I balance it all? How do I make it all work? And, I'll be quite honest with you that some of my motives are selfish. I want my children to travel the world and to come back to Toronto and choose to live here because they know it is the best city to live in. That's what I want from my kids. And so when I ask my kids, what do you want to see in a city? My 7-year-old daughter, she said, I want a beautiful city. My son said, I want a bold and modern city. And so some of you may know that my logo is a sunflower. And the reason it's a sunflower is because sunflowers are bold. They have the strongest stem of any flower. They grow higher than anything else around them, and they always turn to face the sun. That's what our time is right now for this city. It is our time to be aspirational. It is our time to be bold. It is our time to be beautiful. And it's our time to turn and face the sun. Thank you.